Ladies and gentlemen, we all want to change our future. That's why we're here, right? But the problem is, we often try to do it the wrong way. We focus on what we need to do, get the job, make more money, start the company, hit the target, then we focus on how to do it. Hustle harder, read more books, wake up at 5 a.m., start cold plunging, eat kale. But very few of us stop to ask the one question that actually leads to transformation. Why? Why do you want to change your future? Not what your parents want, not what your boss expects, not what society told you success is, but what do you believe? See, your future doesn't begin with a plan. It begins with a purpose, and when you know your why, everything changes. I'll tell you a story. A few years ago, I met a young woman who wanted to become a doctor, not because her father was one, not because she wanted to make six figures, but because when she was 12, she held her brother's hand as he passed away in a hospital that didn't have enough doctors on staff. She wasn't chasing success. She was chasing meaning. And that's why she made it, through the rejections, the sleepless nights, the doubt. Because her why was stronger than any obstacle. Now let me ask you, what is your why? You want to change your future. Then don't start with strategy, start with clarity. Clarity of who you are, clarity of what you believe, clarity of the impact you want to have, and once you have that, then take action, boldly, intentionally, authentically, because the future isn't something we predict. It's something we create. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to start with the right question. So let me leave you with this. Don't ask, what should I do with my life? Ask, who do I want to become? Because when you know who you are, you'll know what to do, and that is how you change your future. Thank you. Most people try to change their future by focusing on what they need to do, like getting a better job, starting a business, or setting goals. Then they think about how to do it, hustling, planning, or copying others. But very few start with the most important question. Why? Without knowing why you want change, your direction lacks meaning. Purpose is the foundation of lasting change. When your actions are rooted in something deeper than money, titles, or status, you gain clarity and resilience. The people who succeed in shaping their future aren't always the smartest or the fastest. They're the ones who are clear on their why. They know what drives them, and that gives them the strength to keep going when it gets hard. Your future doesn't start with a to-do list. It begins with an understanding of who you are and what you believe. When you find your purpose, your reason for being, it becomes the filter through which you make decisions. That's how meaningful change happens, from the inside out, not the outside in. The most powerful stories of success are never just about talent or luck. They're about people who endured because they believed in something greater than themselves. Purpose is what turns setbacks into fuel. It's what makes the difference between quitting and continuing. Your future will be built not just on action, but on belief. Changing your future doesn't require certainty. It requires clarity. You don't need all the answers before you begin. You just need a clear sense of direction, one anchored in who you truly are. When you're aligned with your values and beliefs, the path becomes clearer and decisions become easier. Stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, who do I want to become? Because when you know who you are, the what and how will follow. The most successful people don't chase outcomes. They pursue identity. And when your identity is rooted in your purpose, you won't just change your future. You'll inspire others to change theirs too. Let me know if you'd like these formatted for a slide deck or delivered in a spoken format. When we talk about success or the future, we often focus on skills, strategy, or timing. And those things do matter, but they are not what sustain you. They are not what carry you through the hard days. What sustains you is your why. Think about the people you admire, the ones who seem unstoppable, the ones who do work that matters, the ones who bounce back when others quit. They all have one thing in common. They know why they're doing it. They're not working late just for a promotion. They're not waking up early just for a bonus. They're driven by something deeper, a belief, a cause, a purpose. Purpose gives you direction. It gives you strength. It helps you endure when results don't show up immediately, because let's be honest, there will be times when you fail, when you get rejected, when things move slower than you hoped, and if you're only doing it for a title or a paycheck, you'll quit. But when you're clear on your why, you keep going, because your work becomes more than a task, it becomes a mission. You're not chasing success. You're living out your beliefs, That's what makes the difference. So before you chase the next goal, stop and ask yourself, why does this matter to me? Because when you find that answer, you'll find your energy, your resilience, and your future. See, we live in a world obsessed with action. Do more, hustle harder, check boxes. And yet, many people are still stuck. Why? Because doing more doesn't matter if you're doing the wrong things. Progress without direction is just motion. Real, meaningful change begins when you shift the focus inward. Before you figure out what to do, you have to figure out who you are. What do you value? What do you believe in? What kind of impact do you want to have? These questions aren't just philosophical. They are strategic. When you're clear about who you are, decision-making becomes easier. You stop chasing what impresses others, and you start pursuing what aligns with you. Think of purpose as your internal compass. Without it, you can be incredibly busy and still lost. But with it, even small steps become powerful because they're going in the right direction. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need a 10-year plan. You need clarity about the kind of person you want to be and the contribution you want to make. And from that place of clarity, you take action, not to prove your worth, but to express your purpose. That's how transformation begins, not from chasing a better future, but from discovering your true self. We tend to admire the end results, the breakthrough, the spotlight, the applause. But what we don't see is the years of struggle that came before it, the failures, the rejection, the self-doubt, what carried those people through. It wasn't strategy, it wasn't even confidence, it was belief, belief in a cause, belief in a mission, belief in a future that hadn't happened yet. That's the power of purpose. It gives your pain meaning. It turns obstacles into fuel. It turns fear into courage. When you're connected to something bigger than yourself, you'll find strength you didn't know you had. Think of it this way. If you're climbing a mountain just to take a selfie at the top, you'll quit when it gets steep. But if you're climbing because you believe others need to see what's on the other side, you'll keep going. No matter how tough it gets, purpose turns sacrifice into service. It makes the hard days worthwhile. The truth is, no path worth walking is easy, but purpose is what makes it possible. It gives you the why that keeps you grounded when everything else feels uncertain. So if you want to build a future that lasts, don't just build it on skills or ambition. Build it on belief, because belief is what makes the impossible possible. There's this myth that we need to have everything figured out before we take the first step. We wait for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect conditions. But here's the truth, certainty is a luxury, and it's rarely available at the beginning of anything meaningful. What we really need is clarity, clarity about who we are, clarity about what matters to us, clarity about what we stand for. Because when you have clarity, you don't need a map, you only need a direction. It's like a compass. It won't tell you every step, but it will keep you aligned with your purpose. Without clarity, we drift, we say yes to things we shouldn't, we chase goals that don't fulfill us, we work harder and harder, but feel emptier and emptier. With clarity, we make decisions with intention. We say yes to the right things, and no to the rest. We stop reacting to life, and we start creating it. You don't need to know the final destination to begin. You just need to know what you won't compromise on. Your values, your beliefs, your mission. And when the challenges come, and they will, your clarity becomes your anchor. It keeps you grounded, it keeps you focused, it reminds you what you're doing this for. So stop waiting for certainty, start building clarity. Because the future doesn't belong to those who have all the answers. It belongs to those who have the courage to move forward anyway, with purpose. Stop asking, what should I do? Start asking, who do I want to become? Because once you know who you are, the what and the how will follow. Most of us are taught to build our lives around goals, career milestones, income brackets, achievements. But the most fulfilled people don't build their lives around goals. They build them around identity. They don't just chase success. They live out who they believe they are. And here's the secret. When you live in alignment with your values, your actions become natural. You don't have to force motivation. You don't need constant rewards. You act from a place of integrity, because your behavior is a reflection of your beliefs. So instead of asking, what's next? Ask, does this align with who I am? Instead of asking, how do I win? Ask, how do I live with meaning? That shift changes everything. It takes you out of comparison. It takes you off autopilot. It puts you in control, not just of your choices, but of the story you're telling with your life. Because at the end of the day, you don't leave behind your resume. You leave behind your example. And when that example is rooted in purpose, you don't just change your future. You inspire others to change theirs too. That's how we lead. That's how we live. That's how we create the future we actually want.